Today's meeting is being live streamed. Please ensure that you use the microphone, which has just been told in front of you when you speak. And for those watching at home, don't adjust your monitors. My tie really is this colour. So item number 1, apologies for absence. Obviously, as I was saying, Councillor Sally Morgan will be joining us via internet. Are there any other apologies? None have been noted of. Any declarations of interest? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Other than the ones already shown for District Twin Hatters, I am an employee of Axminster Town Council, which is a member of the P3 scheme. So some of the things we discussed do have some overlap with my employer's activities. I suppose I'd declare it as an effects non-registrable interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any, should add, all town, parishes and district double hatters, triple hatters are covered. So are there any other declarations of interest? Thank you very much. Minutes of the last meeting held on the 25th of November.
18.
Oh, sorry, 18th of November, sorry. Can I have a proposal that they are accepted as true record of the thing? I think it was Councillor Biederman who was first and Councillor Rogers was seconded. Just got in there, did you? Number 4, announcements. I think we should, the committee would like to thank Caroline Gattrell and the Proud team for the staff at the Heritage Centre for their time showing around some of the committee around the Heritage Centre. It was frankly fascinating. It really was a well worthwhile visit, and sorry that not I appreciate you all busy people, but you would have really those that didn't come, you would have really enjoyed it. It was in fact fantastic, and some of the plans and maps were frankly quite beautiful pieces of artwork. So that was really quite useful. And obviously we saw how the public rights of way are decided by this committee, by this department. Some things are going back, almost to medieval times with the pathways. So that was really quite useful in an enjoyable event that was. So hope we get another chance to do it. It really was good. Thank you very much. Is there anyone want to say anything about that? It was really good. Matters arising, urgent action. There's none been notified, and nobody's got any burning issues. Thank you very much. Right, item 6, Devon Countryside Access Forum. Mr. Walton will be taking this. Would you like to just introduce this subject?
Hopefully you've all had a chance to see the minutes, so I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have. But one of the things I did want to note is that Hilary Winter, our forum officer, is actually retiring in the next couple of weeks. And, Hilary's been, an amazing member of the team, really kind of heavily involved in the forum from the outset. So I just wanted to kind of record my thanks for the excellent work that Hilary's done. And I can advise the committee that the recruitment is live for a new officer. Closing date's actually tomorrow, and it looks like we've got a good response so far. So hopeful that we'll be able to recruit a new forum officer, but, a very tough act to follow. Hilary's been excellent.
Thank you very much. Hilary has certainly been a thing. Can I propose and that this committee send a message of thanks to Hilary? Okay, and all in favour? I think that was unanimous. Could that be passed on to Hilary? Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any questions about item 5? Oh, sorry, item 6, sorry. No. Could I therefore ask that members note this? I think this is noting, isn't it? For noting. Yeah.
And then the next one's the decision. So
Yes. So can I, a show of hands noted? I think that was unanimous, noted. Item 7, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Chair. Item 7 is part 2 of the definitive map review in the parish of Tiverton. There are 2 proposals, and it is usual practice for the committee to consider and make a decision separately on each one. The first one is proposal 5, which is for the addition of a bridleway at Lurley in the parish of Tiverton. During the definitive map process, it was recognised that the statement for Bridleway 2 and the map were conflicting. That is how this arose and was put forward for consultation and consideration. The evidence is all pretty clear in the report that the lane has been open and used as a bridleway since the definitive map was first created and recorded. No landowners responded to the consultation to object. The proposal is supported by the Ramblers and the parish P3 representative. The recommendation is that a modification order be made to add a bridleway between points L and M.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Just go ahead and move it. Thank you very much. Seconded. All those in favour? That looks like unanimous. Would you like to?
Moving on, proposal 6.
Proposal 6, yeah.
Is for the proposed upgrade of footpath 3 to a bridleway. User evidence forms from horse riders were received back in 2008. It was put on file for consideration when the review reached Tiverton. Further user evidence was received during the consultation process. That 2 landowners responded to the consultation as well, both aware of use of the route by horse riders. And those landowners don't object to the proposal to upgrade the route. No other rebuttal evidence has come forward. And it's well supported by the Templeton Parish Council. Part of the route does just cross the border into Templeton. The Ramblers support it, and also the Tiverton P3 rep. So yeah, it's well supported. All the evidence it is strong, and therefore the recommendation is to make an order to upgrade the footpath to a bridleway. Okay, thank you, Chair.
I can just kind of, quickly kind of reference the different plans that there are for this one, but these are ones where they've been kind of done under delegated powers. So the first one is in Combe Martin, that's footpath number 37. The next one is also Combe Martin, and that's footpath 38. And the third one is Ashwater, and that's footpath number 1 and footpath number 4. So this is where the definitive map and statement orders have been made and confirmed.
Can I have a motion, someone to support noting this? Too much. All in favour? Duly noted.
Thank you.
Item number 9.
In terms of item number 9, and this is then the public path diversion definitive map and statement modification orders that have been made and confirmed since the last meeting. And there are 2 of those that we're looking to highlight. So there is footpath number 5 Farway. And I think this is one that previously came to committee, wasn't it? Is that right? No, sorry, my mistake. But yeah, so footpath number 5 Farway is the first one of them. And then the second one is footpaths numbers 1, 5, 9A and 26 in Branscombe. In terms of all these ones, this is where it's realignment of the public rights of way. The last one of these, as you can see from the map, it's quite an extensive area. And this is where we've been kind of working with the local community and kind of landowners, where some of the paths have been, you know, suffering from coastal erosion. So the realignments are helping to address some of those issues.
Are there any questions from the committee? Oh, and then.
Thank you. I mean, obviously these are necessary, but I'm very well aware, as most people are, in seeing and such like, that this area is used for grizzly and such like. Has that? There's no implications to the grizzly course and the route, to your knowledge? I mean, I'm looking at this. I've never ran the grizzly, I should add, but I'm aware of where it goes to. So, thank you. Have you? Oh. Play.
I hasten to add the grizzly is a run and not the reintroduction of grizzly bear. It's just East Devon.
So I think so Tom might be able to kind of correct me if I get it wrong. So these paths are not directly affected by the grizzly route. I know in terms of the grizzly route, I think that's slightly further east. Is that right? In terms of some of the paths that are.
Yes, in any case, the routes that we're extinguishing here don't physically exist on the ground for the grizzly to use them if they wanted to anyway. So potentially it improves potential routes for them in future.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Tinsley. Yep. Oh.
Green now. What does green mean? They're just flashing. Didn't make it out. Thank you. I pressed the button wrong, apparently. Is the route going to be signed more than the old route was? Because the last I walked that area, it was quite easy to wander off the path. Thank you.
Yes, it is signed. It is rather a warren of unofficial paths down there. But yes, if you pay attention, you'll see the way markers on the way down.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think Thomas kind of covered it. The realignment of path does mean the total extinguishing of all the original paths that were there, absolutely closed off for safety reasons.
Yes, so the solid lines on that plan, they've been extinguished. The area is still within the coastal margin, so there is public access across the whole of the undercliff there under coastal access rights. Thank you, Chair. Yes, item 10 is just a brief update on the progress of the county-wide definitive map review. It is drawing to a close. We're now on to the sort of final 1% of parishes in the county, and it is just to act as a kind of a note for the committee that as we move into the final stages of completing the review, we will be sort of shifting the way we work from the review process into dealing with the backlog of Schedule 14 applications, which have come in since the review started back around 89, I think, 1989. So yeah, we will be looking at the best way to progress from the current review system to a new way of processing those applications sort of in the next few months.
Councillor Rogers.
My only question was, obviously, we've come through an extreme winter, and do we have acknowledgement of the damage that's been done to existing footpaths as a result of the extreme winter we've just come through? Is there a plan to make sure we understand the size and scale of that damage as a result of the extreme weather we've just come through?
Yeah, Richard's probably best to answer this one.
So yes, I mean, we're losing a lot of paths in terms of kind of riverbank erosion, but also then kind of coastal erosion. The process by which we would look to modify some of those paths, I mean, some of it I can pick up briefly on the item update about the England Coast Path, and because that will provide some mechanism in relation to the coastal path routes. In relation to riverbank routes generally, the onus is around working with the landowners to see if we can secure diversion alignments. And so that would be through the public path order process. And yes, we're kind of, with the River Otter particularly, which was affected quite badly in the winter, we're kind of currently liaising with landowners about a number of realignments in those areas. It's probably worth stressing that, you know, the council does have powers to, you know, propose diversions of footpaths against landowner interests. So, you know, we would always look to secure the landowner agreement and landowner support. There is a mechanism by which we could potentially, as a council, propose alternative alignments against the landowner's interest, but it's very rare that we would seek to do that. So our start point and our focus at the moment is liaising with the landowners in those areas and trying to get, you know, suitable alternative alignments in place.
Councillor Rogers.
Do we have any idea of scale as a result of the coming through the winter? In terms of percentage or just scale?
So the percentage is low, but what you do have, so, you know, there are, you know, 2 or 3 paths along the River Otter which have been significantly impacted. And we've got a couple of paths in Beer which have been significantly impacted. So the physical scale on the small number of areas affected is quite significant, but the total area affected is relatively low.
Sorry, Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the Schedule 14 DMMO backlog. Roughly, what is the backlog? I've got a parish that's planning on putting one in. Do you know how long they expect it to take?
No exact timescale, no. The backlog at present is about 180 applications. A large number of those are Trail Riders Fellowship applications. But yeah, 180, so a fairly long time scale for getting through all of those.
Rough time, like years, decades?
I couldn't even put it would be a complete guess and not worth the paper it's written on.
Just to add to that, I mean, we're proposing a future item in relation to kind of the next steps in relation to the Schedule 14 process, so we can give more information at the next meeting. What's the, you know, in terms of the positives, because the focus has been on the parish by parish review and that's coming to a close, we're then working through that backlog. So, you know, most of the resource that's doing the parish by parish review will get reallocated to that work stream. And to a certain extent, we're going in date order. but the rights of way improvement plan includes some policy positions which went through the previous encouragement of this committee. And we do have a mechanism where we would take certain paths forward earlier, where they're kind of, providing strategic benefit or sorting out known anomalies in the network. So there is a mechanism by which, newer applications might be needed to be considered first in that stream. But really, we're kind of talking about, the focus for Tom's team, from, later on this year is going to be very much that backlog of applications. And so we should be whittling through that at a fairly reasonable pace.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tinsley, and seconded. Well, I think Councillor Dempster beat you to it, but thank you very much. All those in favour of noting it? That's unanimous again. So we now go on to the King Charles England Coast Park, which is really quite an amazing apparent. And someone did ask in the pre-meeting, has he walked it? He's actually walked quite the King, His Majesty the King, has walked quite a large section of this path. So that goes to show. Anyway, Mr. Walton.
So really, because we'd kind of hit, at the time of writing the report, we'd hit a good milestone in relation to Devon, and national events have kind of superseded that. So in the report, I made reference to the fact that in December, all of the England Coast Path and the associated new coastal access rights were basically declared open by the Secretary of State. And as of last week, the Secretary of State has made the order in relation to all of the the King Charles III England Coast Path. So all of it is now officially kind of declared open, and all of the kind of the new coastal access rights associated with that. The national trail as a whole becomes, I think, the longest trail, national trail one of the longest in the world, and certainly the longest in this country. Kind of an impressive scale. In terms of the Devon sections, it's approximately 190 miles of path network in the north and south coast combined. The King Charles III England Coast Path in Devon largely follows the same route as the already established Southwest Coast Path. And what it does mean is that we've actually got two national trails that kind of come through Devon. So although they're following the same route, they are two distinct national trails. So, one doesn't take over the other. They both continue to exist. In some locations, not many, I'll give you an example in a sec, but in some locations, the route varies slightly. A good example is Barnstaple. So the legislation for the King Charles III England Coast Path is that it takes the first estuary crossing. So for Barnstaple, that's the newer of the bridges. The Southwest Coast Path is established in terms of going through the town and across the old bridge. And that's actually kind of very important for walkers and for the kind of the local town itself. But, with facilities, with the kind of the cafes, the accommodation and so forth. So the Southwest Coast Path continues to flow through the town and over the old bridge, where the England Coast Path would go over the new bridge. So as I say, there's a couple of other examples where there'll be two routes, but for the main, it's the same route in both areas. For the establishment works, we have done a number of path improvements over the last sort of 3 to 4 years, approximately £400,000 worth of grant aid towards those projects. It includes a new alignment for path between Croyd and Saunton, which kind of creates a really nice higher level route above the road, giving kind of, wonderful views across the bay. Definitely recommend walking that for people in terms of that kind of new alignment. Amazing views from there. And then we've got another example is at Mothercombe on the south coast. We've got a high tide route. So when the tide was high, the path was under the beach, under the sea across the beach. And now we've kind of extended a coastal defence at the rear of the beach to kind of create a new high tide route in that area. And at Stoke Fleming, there's a new path that's gone in to reduce the amount of road walking in that area. So some quite nice improvements. One I know local community being particularly pleased to see is at Blackpool Sands, where the path between Stoke Fleming and Blackpool Sands, previous storm event had taken out Monterey pine, very big ornamental tree, and the root plate took out the embankment. So there's quite a significant, literal hole in the coast path in that area. And so there's a new bridging structure that's gone in that area. And that's kind of re-established that link, which is really, really kind of important for the coast path as a whole, but really, really kind of well used by local people there. So, yeah, so all open in Devon and all open nationally as of last week as well. As we've touched upon in terms of where we were talking about the path diversions around the Branscombe area, part of the England coast path then includes this coastal margin. And so that kind of creates new access rights to kind of beaches and all the land on the seaward side of the coast path. So there's new access opportunities for people, which is kind of particularly important. And it also provides a mechanism called rollback. And rollback is where there's coastal erosion, the line of the coast path can then be moved marginally inland. In a more simplified process. So, as you know, in terms of realigning a public footpath, it's a legal order. It can be quite a complex process. The rollback is a more straightforward process, and we're all currently working on our first section of rollback at the moment at B Sands. So, where the path, it's heavily reported in relation to the issues at Torcross, but B Sands, of course, is also impacted, and the coast path was lost in that area. And we're working with the landowner there about rollback, so we can kind of re-establish that route in that area. So, yeah, really, it's just for information. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so the South West Coast Path and King Charles III Coast Path are the same path apart from where the additions and the extensions have been made. How does the signage work on it? When you get to where you have an option for two, is it signed one way, the South West Coast Path, and the alternative route, the King Charles Coast Path?
Yeah. So two points I'd like to make in relation to that. So the first one is in terms of continuity, to not confuse walkers. The overall branding is going to be coast path. So in most instances, people will be coast path. There will be some discs at strategic places which would show that it's part of the King Charles III England coast path, but the branding will be coast path because it's national trail. The symbol logo for national trails is the acorn, and so that remains the same. So the standard signage will be coast path with an acorn, and at intermittent points they'd be part of the King Charles III England coast path discs as well. Where the route varies, the short answer is yes, you're right. In some locations it would say coast, or would say England coast path, and then it would say Southwest coast path. For most of those locations, we're going to take a more pragmatic view and really just sort of signpost the destination. So in effect, you say coast path via Barnstable, or not via Barnstable. So just try and provide some sensible information, but non too wordy, so it's not cluttering the sign.
Well, Neil sort of answered the question, but Richard, if, that's really quite, because I'm assuming that the King Charles is going to get all the attention and people are going to want to walk the King Charles route. So I was pleased you said that, when you've got destinations, because like you say, potentially Barnstable are going to miss out a lot if everybody's heading over there. It's great while you're here, but everybody is, will that signage, we got that in a decision notice somewhere, that signage into the town centres will happen, because
it's a good point. So I'll make a note because it'd be a useful thing to bed into the kind of next review of the rights of way improvement plan. The other aspect of it is we coordinate the management arrangements for the Southwest Coast Path and the England Coast Path in those areas between Minehead and Poole Harbour. So, those areas are kind of coordinated through the Southwest Coast Path Association, who hosts the National Trail Officer. So we have a kind of an integrated approach with all the relevant organisations. So that's the highway authorities along the route, the National Park at Exmoor, the National Trust as kind of one of the major landowners. And so we're part of that kind of management arrangement that has that consistency. And so it gets bedded into the kind of the management and working policies for the Southwest Coast Path Trail Partnership mechanism as well. So I'll make sure it's fed into that process, but also, as I say, when we do the review of the rights of way improvement plan, make sure it's factored there as well.
Councillor Rogers?
Thank you, Chair. Can we just put on the record our appreciation to the hard-working teams who have got us through the winter and doing retrospective works to make sure we're welcoming visitors in the spring and summer and beyond?
I think we'll add that to the noting. Is everybody happy with that? And no, but with the thanks, would someone like to propose that? Councillor Rogers, seconded by Councillor Beadleman. So all those in favour of noting it and congratulating the team. Thank you very much. That is unanimous. Item 12 is so over to you again. Item 12 is parish path partnerships.
So it was requested that we provide an update on P3. Timing was such I wasn't able to do it as a sort of a formal report, but I said I'd be able to do a kind of verbal update. I think it's particularly important in relation to, I guess, highlighting some awareness of the scheme, outlining the importance of the scheme, but also, I guess, kind of some honesty around some of the issues we've faced administratively as well in terms of the scheme as well. So I think as local members, all of you may have had kind of like concerns from some of your parishes where, we've been dealing with a backlog of kind of correspondence and some teething issues with the new finance system as well, and, such like. So if it's okay, I'll just kind of run through some notes that I kind of made, which I'd be happy to sort of share more widely. So the Parish Paths Partnership is the mechanism by which Devon County Council kind of encourages and supports local level kind of direct involvement in management and maintenance of the public rights of way network. It is targeted towards the parish and town councils, but it does also have kind of opportunity for other local community groups and local rambler groups and other organisations to get directly involved as well. But the focal point is the parish and town councils, and having that kind of opportunity and mechanism to get much more, direct input locally. I think part of the key benefit about it is by kind of working with the parish and town councils and other local community groups, it's about trying to get the investment in the right area. What are the paths that matter most to kind of local communities? But also then thinking about ways of trying to secure additional investment. So, if the county council are putting money in, what opportunities are there for other funding streams as well to help support that work? But also, trying to tap into the wealth of local knowledge there is. And that local knowledge, some of it is around the history of the path. Some of it is the relationships with kind of the landowners and the farmers who kind of, manage and own a lot of the land. But also in relation to, the kind of, there's a lot of skills locally in terms of, actually kind of being out and about and, physically helping to look after the paths. So kind of a range of kind of skill set and, opportunities that kind of local communities can help support us with. The scheme that we run is largely based on a pilot project that first started in the early 1990s. I think it's around 1993. It was a kind of a government funded initiative through Countryside Commission, Countryside Agency, which were the forerunners to Natural England. So Natural England kind of now have some of the responsibilities of the previous Countryside Commission and Countryside Agency. But it's no longer a centrally funded scheme, but it came out of a pilot project. And Devon was an early adopter of this pilot project. It was one of the first 15 highway authorities that engaged in the scheme. And Devon is one of a few councils that still retain a version of the scheme. So most highway authorities have opportunities and mechanisms for community involvement. Some of them will still operate a version of the P3 scheme, but it's not standard in that respect. It's kind of, it's more the exception than the rule in terms of, the opportunities that are available. I was doing a bit of research and, say, for example, you've kind of got Norfolk County Council have a version and Cambridgeshire County Council and Shropshire and Essex as well. So, I don't have a clear kind of indication on the exact numbers of local authorities that are running a version similar to the original pilot, but, it's not that many. And as I say, but, most are running some form of opportunity for local involvement. Currently in Devon, it's about 150 parish and town councils participating in the scheme in the current financial year. The number of parish and town councils participating does fluctuate a bit. I was looking back through some of the previous records, and I think it was about 100 in 2020. But it kind of fluctuates between 25 to 50% of parishes. So, that does raise the question in relation to, there's 50 to 75% of parishes that are not involved. So there are opportunities, I think, to grow the scheme and to see what, opportunities there are to kind of get more kind of local level involvement. The scale of involvement for parishes does vary quite significantly. At an entry level, it's where there'll be local volunteers walking the paths in their local area, highlighting condition and kind of reporting and feeding back. And then at the kind of the more intensive level, there are some parish and town councils where they actually take much more of a lead role and will actually kind of, be a lead body and kind of looking after the paths in their local area. So we'll actually kind of have their own kind of work gangs going out and doing, path cutting, drainage works and signage works. So the scheme is trying to be run in a way that it can kind of support, kind of an entry level through to kind of much more extensive involvement. The entry level aspect on it is based on a payment per mile of the number of paths in a parish. So that's currently based on £30. The rate hasn't gone up in a very, very long time. So, one of the things we are looking at is, are there ways we can put additional funding into it? And, part of that is we've kind of got the basic payment, which is a revenue contribution. And then we also provide some capital funding for kind of improvement schemes. So just looking at whether there are opportunities for improving the rates. But, at the moment, it's £30 per mile of path for that entry level capital grants towards improvement projects and kind of local variable agreements, depending on how much the parish and town council are looking to do in relation to kind of other revenue contributions. It's probably worth flagging that kind of amount of funding, though, it equates to about 12% of the maintenance budget that we do kind of, have for public rights of way as a whole. So it's about right in terms of the proportions. If you're thinking, it's like 25 to 50% of parishes involved and they're not doing everything on the network. The proportions are broadly about right in that respect. So basic level entry, kind of more extensive, looking at improvement projects. Some of it is also then, we can supply kind of gates and signage and things like that, kind of local volunteers and local work gangs and direct employees to put in. The administration of the scheme. So when P3 first came in as a pilot project and it was funded, there were 2 full-time officers. It's now 1 full-time officer. So, the resourcing that we're able to afford direct is lower. And I think, that does have an implication in relation to some of the issues that we're kind of experiencing at the moment. The post that we've got within the team at the moment, we've got our projects and partnerships officer. And then, they're responsible for, the kind of the community engagement, negotiating the agreements, helping the parishes bring forward their projects. But I think most importantly, making sure the parishes are getting their grants. And picking up some of the key benefits of the scheme, I think, I've kind of grouped those into sort of 5 main areas. I think the first one is that direct local level involvement in management and maintenance of the network. Secondly, that ability to utilise and also help support and extend kind of local skills, knowledge and contacts. Thirdly, about trying to make sure that we're identifying the most important paths and prioritising the projects that have the most impact to, Devon's residents and the visitors to Devon as well. Fourthly, that opportunity to attract additional investment. And, some parish and town councils, may set a precept to be able to put additional funding into their networks. The fifth benefit, I think, is that it provides that additional flexibility with programming and delivery. So I think a good example in relation to the season we're about to come into. So a lot of our work is around the seasonal vegetation cuts. And, we've had a very mild, wet winter, so everything has grown, continued growing pretty much all winter. So we haven't had a particularly dormant period in terms of vegetation growth. But in terms of path cutting, we tend to kind of work on a period sort of from April through to July in relation to kind of the main cuts. Where we're doing it direct, we tend to utilise local contractors through the Public Rights of Way framework agreement. And, we'll have multiple contractors working at any one time, but multiple contractors, each one will have a long list of paths that they're cutting, and they'll start at one end and they'll continue working through. So for a lot of paths, they're going to be at the tail end of the programme. So one of the things that P3 can do is provide that opportunity for additional cut cycles, or for parishes to help bring forward the cut cycles in their own areas to, help kind of deal with that programming and the logistics aspects of that. That's just, one of the examples of where it can kind of help, tailor activities a bit. In terms of current challenges, we have been dealing with quite a large backlog of correspondence. So our current post holder, he's been in post a while, but there was quite a lengthy gap between the previous post holder moving to a different role and being able to recruit a new post holder. So we had a period of time where there was nobody in post, and so there was a period where we were very much struggling to cover inquiries. So there was a big backlog of parishes having not heard a lot of information from us. And one of the most important things, I think, in relation to schemes like this is that kind of local communication, actually being able to know that, if they're raising a query, it gets picked up, it gets answered. So that kind of communications and backlog has been an issue for us, and we're sort of trying to kind of, catch up and make sure that we address that and don't repeat that scenario. Administration of grant agreements, purchase orders and payments. There have been delays for some parishes. In part, there have been a few teething issues with the new finance system where contact details haven't transferred across from the old system into the new system. So we've had quite a few examples where we've raised purchase orders for parishes, but the parishes didn't receive their purchase orders. So, trying to address that. And I think we should have that sorted now in terms of having the correct information into the new finance system now. So hopefully that will be one glitch that shouldn't get repeated at all. But also that kind of individual support to parishes and towns, it's actually kind of, having the right level of kind of officer input to be able to kind of get out to parish and council meetings, but also walk the paths and talk through projects with them. And importantly, going back to the kind of levels of participation is, having the capacity to be able to network and help promote and encourage and grow the scheme. Lastly, just wanted to touch on a few kind of improvements that we have put in place. And because they're changes, there's going to be teething issues with some of those changes. So we've put some improvements in place on the basis of discussions that we have had with some parishes. Some parishes have been taken a little bit by surprise by some of the changes. And so, we've put them in place in good faith as being improvements. And, a couple of parishes have queried whether it's an improvement or and added confusion. So we kind of need to kind of work through that. But various things that we've done. So I think one of the important things is in terms of simplifying communications. So we've actually set up a bespoke P3 mailbox. So previously, parish paths communications were going through the general public rights of way mailbox. And it was actually quite difficult to keep track of all the different kind of contacts that are coming through that. So we now have a P3 specific mailbox, and that's actually monitored by, or it's coordinated predominantly by our projects and partnerships officers. But then another 3 of us also have input to that. So it's much easier for us to identify which parishes have got a query that hasn't been responded to yet. So we can kind of help keep tabs on that much more clearly. So that will help in terms of some of that aspect. We've actually reduced the number of grant forms. So previously there were 3 grant forms that parishes had to deal with. We've reduced that down to 2. So there's the basic entry kind of scheme, and then there's the kind of like improvements and, higher level activities. So 2 grant forms rather than 3. So we're trying to reduce the amount of paperwork. We've also, part of the issue we've had is there was a set time frame for bidding for the P3 scheme, which meant that we were getting a lot of peak activity. So, you're getting 150, 200 applications all at the same time. So there's no longer set deadlines for improvement projects. For example, they can be submitted at any time through the year, and we can have a rolling program. So it'll take a while for that to bed in, but that'd be good, I think. And it also kind of reduces some of the time pressure on the local communities and parishes themselves. So they don't have a hard deadline to hit. They can bring forward projects at any time. Also, we've reduced the amount of inspection criteria on the surveys that parishes. So it's slightly simplified. They're having to report on slightly less numbers of criteria, but it's giving still the main information that's actually useful to us. And in the inspection criteria, encouraging parishes, so because some parishes will go out, they'll inspect the path and there'll be issues, but the issues will be ones that they want Devon to fix direct as opposed to manage themselves. So what we're suggesting now is when they do their inspections, if they're finding issues that are path issues that are going to be for Devon to sort out, they just report them direct online, because that means those reports will go direct to the warden, as opposed to it goes to the P3 coordinator. The P3 coordinator will sift it and then pass it across to the warden. So that will save several weeks, I think, for a lot of parishes and a lot of inquiries. And, secondly, so if it's something that the county will be dealing with direct, to put it through the online reporting. But if it's something, then the parish are going to be dealing with themselves and or potential for improvement project to still kind of report that through the previous mechanism. So I think, we're at a key point in terms of, trying to make sure that we don't repeat the issues that we've had with this backlog, and, the comms do improve, that there are opportunities to improve the scheme. And I think, whilst we don't have certainty in relation to local government review, I think, my personal professional opinion is I think that P3 will have greater significance under the kind of the unitary authority status. I think there'll be a lot of, because a lot of parishes and towns, may want to, take on additional kind of roles, additional responsibilities. And this would be a good example of, schemes where we can work jointly. So, if anything, I think the importance of the scheme is going to grow and not diminish. So we're kind of like, keen to make sure that we, learn from the issues that have happened and, continue to develop the scheme and make sure that it's kind of fit for purpose.
Thank you very much. Councillors community, sorry, no, that's Teambridge. Locality budgets, can we put money, if we got spare money, can we put money into this as we can do with highways?
It's nice to have an easy question to answer. Yes.
Right, excellent.
and it's most welcome, and we can give good examples
if anybody's got any locality budget left, you know where to put it. And there is the Ramblers Association is putting has got a grant scheme for public footpath. Anyway, sorry. Oh good God, Councillor Rowley was I think first, and then Councillor Rogers.
Can this be summarised so we can forward it to parishes as a communication?
Sorry?
Can this information be summarised?
the wonderful vice chairman will be writing a piece for stuff, and which will be sent to all parish councils.
And
Thank
can
you.
we as members be copied in on that?
Of course.
Thank you very much.
Easy question answered. There we are. Sorry, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Richard. Is it possible, I've got 3 points really. Is it possible to just elaborate a little bit more on the £30 a mile? If, for example, I have a parish which is maintaining a 4-mile path, if they actively maintain a mile of that, do they get paid for the whole path or just the mile that they've worked on? And is it every time they go out to maintain the path, if they go out and maintain the whole path 3 times a year, or is it just one payment per annum? The first point. The second, quite brief, the supplier gates that you mentioned. Again, who's responsible for the cost at that? The parish council or yourselves? And thirdly, what about a footpath or a permissive path that already runs through a country park? Is that scheme and those benefits still able to be carried out by the parish on a path? I'm just thinking the canal towpath at Tiverton, which is part of one of the country paths. Thank you.
At a slight risk, I might get my information slightly wrong, but I'll give you the best answer in terms of my understanding. So in terms of the mileage payment is in relation to the entry, is in relation to the entry level. And so it's a payment per mile of the number of paths, the total length of the paths within that parish. So it's a standard payment for that membership year. Where the parishes are then, and that kind of, covers the survey work, and then also kind of, minor routine tasks such as keeping signs clear and, kind of volunteers with hand tools that might look to be cutting back, like brambles and the such like. It partly depends on the respective arrangements that the different parish and town councils have in relation to how much more payments are going through. So as I say, some parishes may choose to set a precept and have their own resources. And so, they may have sufficient funds within their own resources and the £30 to do slightly more. Some parishes may need an additional grant to be able to do the more intensive work. And so they're kind of considered on a case by case basis. But, the £30 is the entry level. There's potential to kind of increase that where more extensive works are done from a maintenance perspective. And then there's the improvement grant, which is the capital funded. And that's, based on per project. We're always looking to kind of get the best value that we can. So if there are ways to bring in additional funding, so for example, the Ramblers nationally offer this grant scheme that the chair just referenced. A good example could be that a local community may look to use a Devon County Council P3 capital grant to do a proportion and a Ramblers grant to do a proportion, and may have, some community or kind of, well, some good examples actually, a lot of the supermarkets where they have community funding in for local schemes in relation to the amounts that they take for bags. So you could have 3 funding partners. So in effect, you could get a big project where 3 organisations are all putting in a little bit of money. So you're kind of getting the best value for money. But the projects can be funded at up to 100% depending on what the total costs are. But we look to try and prioritise where we can get value for money with other funding sources as well. In relation to the materials, again, there's 2 ways of doing it. So we, through the capital programme, we will purchase gates and new signs, and we hold some stocks of those in some of the highway depots. And so we can make them available to the parishes. So, so some of those we would meet the cost, and the parish would basically, we'd meet the cost of supply the parish either through volunteers or direct labour or a local contractor may do the installation cost, for example. In relation to kind of routes through country parks, so taking the kind of the Grand Western Canal example, that's where I'm not 100% sure of the information. I think the scenario is that the base payment would still apply in terms of it's based on the number of paths in that parish. So although it's combined with the towpath, it would still count towards the area of paths within that parish area. I think that's correct, but not 100% certain.
Councillor Davies, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. That was good to get an update on the P3. I have had issues. I think we've communicated directly about it anyway through the portal. I've had 3 parishes where I've had to chase up, but I've got 22 parishes. I don't want to go directly to the parish and say, have you got a problem, if they haven't got a problem. But so I'm concerned about the backlog that you talk about, because for the clerks, they're always up against it. They've always got a lot of work to do within a very short space of time. So for one of my clerks to have to chase up 4 times and fill in an information sheet about their finances before it gets recognised, that was I can see there's a administrative glitch there, but I just I'm concerned about the backlog for other parishes as well. So when you say backlog, it sounds like it might be a common theme within your department. And I just wonder whether you ought to have another member of staff on the team until the backlog's cleared for the communication, because a lot of time it is just communication of them chasing up payments.
Bring in the vice chairman afterwards. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of points in there. As you say, we've kind of been liaising on some of those kind of aspects. I think the good news is most of the current parishes haven't experienced problems. The flip side of that is it makes it feel worse for the parishes that have experienced problems. And as I say, some of those problems have been when we've investigated, have been around issues like kind of incorrect details in the finance system. So, as I say, some of those have been very temporary glitches, which we, hopefully we should have fixed by now or got very close to the end of those kind of issues coming to the fore. The setting up of the P3 mailbox, I think, will be a very effective mechanism to help address the aspect of parishes where they weren't getting responses to messages. Because as I say, there's more people monitoring that now. So that will definitely help on that aspect. And in relation to the communications and the level of kind of resource and kind of officer time and officer support, I am kind of liaising with colleagues in terms of looking at what other mechanisms, albeit, whether we look at working more smartly with some of the other existing teams, and or if we can secure funding or utilize our funding in a more creative way to be able to, fund additional resource as well. So, it's very much part of our conversations at the moment. I guess as an officer, you're kind of like, your natural bias is to say, yes, we need more resource. But I think the start point is making sure that we're using the resource that we've got correctly. And then we've got the business case there to then say, and now we need to extend that to be able to do, to plug the rest of those gaps.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose this is me trying to play devil's advocate, and I'm grateful to Councillor Davis for recognition of a clerk's workload. All officers and councillors, we all work very hard. So in East Devon, for example, and this is an example. So East Devon District Council provides all town councils with a sum of money each year. And that's because they know that the town council is going to be a conduit for inquiries about district council services. So they give us a nominal sum. It's not huge, but it's welcome. It's received every year and it's no strings attached. They simply pay it to us every year. And that's partly what you have with this P3 mileage element. that for those parishes who have signed up to the agreement, there has to be a modicum of trust between the county council and the parish or town council, that you'll pay them some money based on how many miles of footpaths they have, and that they will do some work. Now, we all know we've had 3 months of rain, absolute torrential rain, and in my own parish, some blighters stole every single bit of kit I had, every single bit of kit, and we've just replaced it. So there's been a period where we couldn't actually do much other than with hand tools when we got onto the footpath. So I think perhaps there might be, and this is for committee and cabinet and others to consider, is that annual sum, the mileage of footpaths in a parish isn't really going to change. There might be some minor modifications and chop a bit here and add a bit there, but generally if you've got 30 miles in January, you're going to have 30 miles at the end of the year. And so perhaps in recognition of the scheme, and the parishes have willingly signed up to it, not all, but most, a lot of them, that perhaps that sum is just paid. You know, once a year, a purchase order is raised at Devon County Council level, and they say we have 150 active participants. We know how many miles of footpaths they have. Do the maths. There is a sum of money, and it's paid, just like Devon County East Devon pays it to us. And then there is that trust that we won't go out and splurge on inappropriate things. It will get spent on the footpaths that we administer for you. The special projects, the ones where Devon isn't stepping up, and I'm very grateful to Devon in my own parish for the work they've done, especially on bridges and such like, because they are huge engineering tasks. But the other stuff, the foliage maintenance and the specific resurfacing, those sort of things, if that is a special request, then as Richard has kindly said, an application can be made in year, beginning of the year, end of the year. But I think to speed up the process and actually reduce officer resourcing issues at Devon, you could just pay that sum and then ask for the feedback response, but it doesn't really need a survey. And you know, other members may disagree that actually you do need that level of scrutiny and oversight. But for me, it comes down to a basic, the parish, it's a covenant, isn't it, between Devon County Council and the parish. They've agreed to do their bit. Devon's agreed to pay them. And if there is that trust, should we just trust our towns and parishes to do what they say they will do? And if evidence comes out that they're all egregiously not doing that, well, fine, then reassess it. But it's just one less set of forms, one less set of things that have to be data entered, checked, resourced, PO sent off to the accounts team. All of that takes time. And because it takes time, it takes resource. And perhaps there isn't a more efficient, streamlined way it could be done. But that's for others perhaps to consider and ruminate upon, Chair. Thank you.
Bring back Richard.
Yeah, I think as you know, the vice chair's kind of highlighted there, it would be for, I would need to pass that to others in relation to kind of what the logistics are. What I would say is, you know, what we've been trying to do is to simplify that kind of entry level, and if we can simplify it further, then you know, there is certainly a lot of logic to doing so. So you know, I'd take that on board, but you know, I don't know what the answer is. But
I like the vice chair's suggestion, and I think it should be discussed further. I just wanted to ask, with the basic grant scheme, if the parish council have been paid that, but then they have maybe 4 schemes, smaller schemes, individual schemes that they've put forward and haven't had a reply on for over 12 months, do they need to resubmit them, or are they still waiting for a reply in the backlog?
I think that's where we'd need to investigate what's gone wrong in relation to the specific parishes there. If we can, I wouldn't want them to have to resubmit paperwork that we've already got. So, you know, if we've already got the scheme and it's still a viable scheme, the start point is we wouldn't want them to have to resubmit it. We would just maybe look to roll it into the next financial year. As in, so if we haven't done it, you know, in 25-26, but we've got the forms for it, is prioritise it then for, you know, from April.
Okay, so I should advise them not to resubmit, but I would need to find out for them if they are still live projects.
If you could find out if they're still live projects and they haven't heard, then it's probably if they kind of contact myself or Debbie, who I think you've probably had some contact with as well.
Mm.
So if
No, I don't think I have.
Oh.
Debbie-
so Debbie Ebsery is the line manager to the projects and partnerships officer. So
Okay,
she's kind of been doing, and she's a relatively new member of the team,
Mhm.
and she's been prioritising and helping deal with the backlog.
I should say that when I have contacted your department and yourself, I have been, John Boyd especially, I have been helped really very quickly. So yeah, it's just the need to actually get the get your involvement in the first place. But yeah, you have been very helpful. So thank you.
That's very helpful. Can we make a recommendation? Because I like what the vice chairman was saying, actually. We can ask that, could we ask the cabinet to explore that? Would that be uncommittal? Could we do that? Or-
I'm kind of off piste slightly. I
Yes.
think if there was a recommendation for me to kind of investigate with more senior officers in relation to what opportunities there are to streamline.
Would you be happy with that?
Yeah.
Would, right, so that's been proposed and that's been proposed by the vice chairman, seconded. All those in favour?
I will abstain, Chair, because of my other role.
You can't really. So if the seconder will be the proposer,
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Devon will be the seconder. So, and that's obviously you've declared an interest, and so it's majority in favour of that. I think that's a good forward, and you're happy to take that forward. I don't want to pile yet more onto you. That's okay. That's great. Thank you much. Oh, yeah, could you possibly give us at the next committee meeting a report?
I'll sort of look to feedback at the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you much. Sorry, Councillor Rogers.
If you hit obstacles from what I think is a common sense approach, can you update committee in an interim that you may need more support?
But you've got the backing of the committee. Sorry, we've got the parish pass report. All those in favour of noting that? Thank you very much. Would you, Vice Chair, would you second it?
Yes, of
Suppose it,
course,
yeah. Thank you very much. Future meetings, 6th of July, is that all right for everybody? And 19th of November. Unless there's anything else people want to bring up, I would declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.